Hey, welcome to the Path Podcast. This is your check-in, your space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with where you are on your path right now. Each episode will explore what it means to live and lead with intention, to do the inner work of becoming the person we want to be, not just the person the world expects us to be. Living authentically takes courage. It means asking harder questions, facing the storms, and leaning into the growth that comes when we're willing to look inside and be honest with ourselves. Hey, sometimes these episodes are just the three of us, Stuart, Toby, and myself, Chris, sharing what's showing up on our paths. Other times, we'll invite a guest and share their journey, how they're navigating change, what challenges they're facing, and what they're learning about themselves along the way. Ultimately, together, we'll uncover not just the milestones of success, but the moments of reflection and intention that shape who we're becoming. Because it's important to remember, the path isn't about just where we're going. It's about how we grow as we walk it. The reason we do this is based on the hope that all this resonates with you and you learn something about yourself along the way on your path. So today we're diving into a conversation about curiosity, not just as a trait, but as a way of navigating career and life transitions. Our guest today, Heather Hoover-Salomon, I first came across her profile on LinkedIn, and it was something really cool. She had a little tagline under her name that said, "Intern to CEO journey complete, reset and recharge activated." So I got curious, it caught my attention. We ultimately connected, and I soon learned that curiosity wasn't just a word for her. It was how she actually approached her own journey. And we'll learn about that in a little bit. Heather had the courage to step away, to take a time out, and to really explore her path. She embraced curiosity as a tool for reflection, discovery, and growth. And now, as she says on her own LinkedIn profile, recharge complete. I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that. She's ready to step back in, but this time doing it her way. In this episode, Heather and the guys, we talk about what it means to honor curiosity, how stepping back can actually move us forward, and how the process of pausing, questioning, and recharging can reshape the way we approach work and life. I'm excited for you to hear Heather's perspective. It's a story of courage, curiosity, and carving your own path. So without further ado, we welcome Heather. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Welcome.
Having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, great to meet you, bud. And it was kind of a little bit serendipitous, a little bit of curiosity on my part when I saw your tagline, right? That said, hey, what is going on? And then our whole mission is kind of to find people. This is the people that we coach, like to try to ultimately find their path, and where they're going and why they're doing it and what they learned along the way. So that tagline really caught me, and I'd love to just check in with you and kind of start off with like, where are you on your path now? Maybe you can give us a little background, right, for the audience and
Absolutely.
stuff. Like, where are you on your path right now?
Yeah. So right now, recharge complete. Caveat: recharging is never complete. You always have to replenish along the way. So lesson learned there.
Yeah.
Part of my path was starting as an unpaid intern at a very small startup. They had just closed Series A, and then worked my way up, became paid, but worked my way up to CEO over the course of just under 20 years. So that has been my career. And I would also say a part of my identity, which is a cautionary tale as well. So
we know that really well, Heather. Yeah, we know that really well. Yeah.
Yes. So hence I needed to take a step back for myself. One of the things that I have always said to myself is if you're not learning, growing, trying something new, challenging yourself, then you're not where you need to be. Towards the end of my time at USHIP, I really felt like I had hit a wall where I wasn't serving myself first and foremost. I was giving the company everything and then some. And it was no longer serving me. It wasn't where I knew I needed to be. So I'm a
How'd you
high
know that?
integrity person.
How'd you know that? Like,
Um,
what were the feels associated with that? That's usually a
yeah,
Toby question, but I jumped into it. So
yeah. So I knew it in my, in myself. I was not happy. I wasn't fulfilled, but I was so darn hard headed and strong willed. I'm like, I can make it through it. Just
Yeah.
keep going. Just keep going. But how did I know? My close tribe of friends, the people that I surround myself with that help give you those gut checks when you don't want to hear them.
Totally.
And yeah, so that's how I knew it in myself. But when your closest confidants, your closest people, and even the people that you don't see on a daily, monthly basis, but they're like your forever friends, it's meaningful. So here we are.
That's
Step
huge.
away.
I'm curious. When I think about this, and we'll get into this in more detail as we go, you and I have there's a lot of similarities in our story and our journeys. One of the things that I think about when you talk about, you're in the grind, you're climbing the ladder, you're doing the work, right? And you said a key word, identity, right? There's something that gets profoundly, especially when you're successful doing that, right? And you're climbing that ladder, and their validation along the way that you're doing the right thing, but yet you're depleted, right? But that validation continues. How did you manage that? How'd you navigate that internal drive to perform and to succeed? In our conversation when we talked prior to jumping on the podcast, we had talked just about coming from a small town, kind of working your way up, right? I'm just curious because I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast are high achievers, high performers, and we're trying not to negate that part of who we are, right? Because that's an incredibly important part of our DNA. But to your point, overuse of that, over identification of that part of who we are, we can get lost. Like,
Yes.
how did you, because we get so addicted to that drug of achievement, how did you pull back from that? How did you identify that that's what was going on?
Um, that's a fantastic question. Like, how do you have those early indications, and how do you, figure that out? When everything you guys have all been through, kind of line of fire promotions, and drinking from the fire hose. And I was very good at that. I am very good at that. I'm good at rising to the occasion.
Yeah.
What I found over time, though, is, and I think, side note, I have 2 young kids and a family, and a cat that might pop in here. I don't know. Is that was really my gut check and my signs. Things aren't balanced. And then my own health as well. You start having signs, and so mentally, I was like, you can do this, that little engine could kind of in the back of your mind, but all the indicators around you, that was when I was like, it's off. And I would say through when I became COO, everything was relatively good, but then the next CEO, take it on, and it was just like, but there was no pause. There was never a pause.
No.
And talk about rewriting the way forward, build in those guardrails out of the gate. And something I preach to people. That's something I hold people accountable to. But I didn't do it for myself.
No, there's that heavy identity, especially as a CEO, that and every book tells you this, and every leader tells you that you're not the center of the universe, right? And yet, to a large extent, we feel responsible for the universe. We may not be the center of it, but we feel responsible for it. And so you know, that to your point, the guardrails to help manage that intensity are mission critical, and things like wellness and things like making yourself a priority and doing things that reinvest in yourself, right, to give you the energy. And the other thing, when you get to a CEO level, no one really cares. The reality is that the expectation that you have achieved a certain level and certain financial freedoms, this is what comes with it, and you got to figure it out. And that there's a lot of humans out there, a lot of men and women that just push through, and that's their version of figuring it out. And they're left with a lot of heaviness at the end of that, as you had to navigate, and I did too. I did as
Yeah.
well. But I appreciate
Yeah.
you sharing that. I'm just,
Yeah.
there's always that sign of, we don't realize we're in the throes of chaos until it's too late. And when the outside world validates, right, that our success is the dream, like, you want to be you. There are women that watched you climb the ladder and said, I want to live just like her. And yet they don't understand the full story, right? They don't
Right.
understand the heaviness that comes with that. I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah. And there is a significant amount of heaviness. And I'm not one to live with regrets, but I will say that, my children, I did miss a lot of things. And I was also there for a lot of things. I just feel like I was on, for the last,
Always on.
20 years, just on. And so it has been so refreshing to be able to be where I am. It's like, just really check in with myself. I've never had that. Kind of going back in my past a little bit, and you guys mentioned this, I grew up in a really small town. My parents have their own store to this day. And that's how we made money. I mean, I was brought up in a family business. We also had cattle. So we had a farm, but just a little country girl. Right. But I saw entrepreneurship around me. There were a lot of small mom and pop businesses on Main Street. I knew what it took to get up every day and to go make a living for your family. There's also a lot of farming in our area, from peaches to poultry. I saw that grind. And, so those early lessons of like hard work and building that work ethic, that's really kind of what got me on that track of focus, be resilient, and get through it. Right.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I love that, Heather, because you shared part of that last time we were with you, and I really get to know kind of where you came from, which is great. And we talk a lot with people that most things they try to work through, or just, I'm going to work harder, and that work ethic is something very required of all of us that are going to be successful, or certainly get through the ups and downs in life. And in the spirit, though, of curiosity, you said something when you opened today with learning and growing. We've always been like a part of your mindset, if you will. And I know that for us, we talk a lot about like values and people's values of growth and learning. And it's very talked about, obviously, a lot in the world today, but I'm curious about where that came from you. I get the work ethic for sure, but where did you learn this kind of like this value or commitment of like learning and growing?
This is 100% from, well, nothing's 100%. This is a lot. I have to give credit to my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. She was an educator, and just taught me so many things, especially on the farm, to how she showed up for the civil rights movement, promoting education, the good, the bad, the ugly, the struggle of it all. But there was never an excuse to sit on the sidelines and not be curious, bring people together. And so she's always been my kind of inspiration. She's no longer with us, but she continues to be that spark for me. I'm like, everything she did and what she went through, this is nothing. I can do it.
Well, I'm sorry that she's not with you, but boy, she's left a permanent mark on you. That sounds, what a gift she gave you too. That word curiosity and just what's under it, the learning and the growing, is powerful. That's great. I'm curious about, like, when you look at the last you call it, the real significant changes you've been through to 12 months, 24 months, or whatever it is, when you think about that from your life perspective, what's showing up for you now? Like, what do you, in that curious kind of, like, what do you learn about yourself, or what's showing up right in today's, in the reflective moment you're having or moments you've had? What's showing up?
So in the past, I guess 10 months or so now, I realized how much I had not been exercising or had not been in a situation to exercise my creativity. It's the same problems, like you were just kind of doing the same thing. I lost my creative nature. Mm-hmm. And that's something I've always had. And so actually, a friend of mine who's in HR sent me I don't remember which one it was, but another personality test. And she was like, well, this is interesting. Where does this creativity coming from? I was like, isn't it amazing what happens when you're outside of the, setting where you're CEO and just cranking. And she was like, you should dive into that more. So we're winding back a little bit over the last few months too. What has been showing up for me and bringing me joy is reconnecting with people in my network that I absolutely loved working with. And it's just been it's great to reconnect with someone that you had fun with working. But it has been really great for me to reflect on what that moment of having that particular team that we had in place at that time, how that felt. So I'm talking about like the old leader that was your, first boss that was brought in from externally. And he happened to be a Harvard Business School grad. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to learn everything that he learned and just be a sponge. And so it reminded me of those key moments of different people professionally that have come into my life. Mm-hmm. And so I'm exploring that. I'm just having these conversations and seeing what sparks. But then also meeting founders and just talking to them and helping them on their journey with where they are. Very early stage has been really bringing me joy as well.
That's great. I guess, what have you learned most about you? Because I love hearing what, that reconnection's given you and kind of that finding out about their own journeys as well. But what's Heather learned about Heather?
Great question.
So I am one to I battle, like many people, imposter syndrome. I battle, what am I even good at? Who am I? What am I here for? What can I really bring? So I have been learning because of the random array of projects that I have taken on. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have so much to bring. Why do I ever negative self-talk? Why do I do that? Even to this day, still do that. And I laugh because it truly is comical. And I know so many people deal with that. And it's just, what I have learned though, is just keep getting out there and having those conversations, talking about curiosity, me even being brave enough to follow up with Chris when he reached out. I'm like, my story is not special, not important. Like what? But then I read about Chris and then what you guys are doing. And I was like, why not? So that was like my awesome. Yes. And I'm still saying yes.
That's huge.
More about me.
That's huge.
Well, I was just going to say, I hope you take that win in bravery, because even what you just said there, I think it was just very courageous and brave. And, it's that learning process, right? You got to also learn what you wished you wouldn't have done, but you also got to just, this moment of like, hey, I got to also give myself a nod of, I was brave there. I stepped through a doorway that I probably wouldn't have. So I just hope you're taking that win for sure. Sorry, Chris.
No, amen. I was going to say, hey, Heather, I went through something really similar when I was in, senior executive role, and I had no time for anybody. Right. And I said no to everything. I literally I isolated myself without even knowing I was isolating myself. And I said, oh, it's just going to be about my family. It's going to be about my family. And it wasn't even about them. It was still about the job. And afterwards I said the same thing. I said, I'm just going to say yes to everything. And what it's
Yep.
done for me has just been unbelievable. I mean,
Yes.
I've met partners, I've met you. It's just the
Yeah.
yes is so much more powerful than the no, And
Yeah.
but the no is somewhat
100%.
survival, right? You even said it. You stop learning. You start, you weren't happy, and it's like, well, probably because you're saying no to everything versus yes to everything, but you had to. So it's an
Yes.
interesting complex for sure.
Truly
It wasn't just
is.
a tagline that got me really interested in you, though. Tagline got me there, but then when we started talking, it's like you had the courage. Like we talk to people every day, Heather, that like I don't want to say they're we call it miserably comfortable, right? They're making good money, they have good jobs, they have a good title, but they don't have the courage to do what you did, to go find yourself, to say enough, right? And to move on. Like I know there was some physical stuff and you're unhappy and stuff like that, but like there is a moment there that's, I mean, you're a breadwinner for your family, right? You got kids, you got a lot of responsibilities. Talk to me about that decision and just some of the fear that was attached to that and any other emotions that were kind of attached to just finally saying enough. Like I gotta go take care of me.
Yeah. I've never done skydiving, but it felt like what I would imagine skydiving would be. It's just like, it is incredibly scary. But then when you get out of the plane, it's just like this amazing release, right? But for me, like how I got there was, yes, I talked to people around me, but I knew I had to make a change. And I knew that fear, like living in like a fear of I can't do this is not going to serve me. And I've had other, instances in my life where it was like, tomorrow it's going to be completely different. There's no more answering an email. I'd have no obligation to answer that email. And so I had that. I knew I had that like moment in my past to reflect on and how freeing it was once I got on the other side of it. And so I just didn't let fear get in the way. And of course, I made sure that I had a plan of action where I actually could, afford myself time to rest, reflect, reset, and, re-energize.
Love that. Yeah, I love that. There's just so much to unpack there because it's like, it took me forever to, it took me a change in organizational structure. And then Stu ultimately fired me, but that's a whole nother story. No, not firing, reassigning me, right? Reassigning me.
I had another job for you.
Yeah, but it was like the best thing that could ever happen because it was able for me to kind of step out and see things more clearly. And for the first time in my life, like choose me, over everything else and choose my family. So I know in talking to you, that was something I really was drawn to you about, that courage. Yeah. And I hope you use that in Toby's point, like really hold on to that courageousness to make that decision. And now I think it's going to serve you for wherever you go and whatever you do. So bravo to you, bud.
Heather, one of the things you said just a minute ago that just resonated with me, and I've got a question for you I want to follow up with. But one point, I was with one of my close friends the other day. We grabbed a beer after work, and we had a great interaction. I went home and I get a text from him later, and he said, "Hey, I'd love some help with figuring out how to establish goals." And it was a really weird text. Like, this is a buddy of mine, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Goals? You can't. I mean, I've got a million goals." And it dawned on me, and I wonder if you can relate to this. And I think the other guys can too. There was a big chunk of my life where the future was dictated by the job, right? It was based on the workflow and the cadence of my career really dictated for the pace of my life. And I had to think about that time. And you had spoken to that, like there's just so little space for wellness and health and dreams and aspirations and relationships, talking about Chris kind of pulling back, and isolating. I did the exact same thing, but there's just I think if you're listening to this podcast and you're hearing a bunch of enlightened souls here talking about how we heard this epiphany and then we found our way, and in the moment, I don't know that I knew I was lost. Like in the moment, I honestly believe that was what it meant to make it. Like I didn't have a lot of role models in my life that showed me what highly successful people, how they did it in a healthy way. It was always sacrifice your kids, sacrifice your marriage, sacrifice to have the big job. And what I love is there's a small population of us out there that kind of answered the wake up call that said, okay, time out. We need to get off this highway and try something different. But there's so many out there that might not even know that they need help, right? That they might not even know that they're lost or that they've lost their identity or their path. Before I ask this question, any advice for that person that's out there and feeling like they're succeeding and that they're achieving, but may not be looking at the signs? You had great friends that pulled you aside, just like I did. These men here on the call pulled me aside, but a lot of people don't have those types of relationships where they have that honest, genuine dialogue. What advice do you have for that executive that's not sold their soul, but definitely are prioritizing career advancement over everything else?
If that person is able to introspect, then that is a valuable skill.
Yeah.
And some people don't have it. And so my advice, if this executive out there is just like, this is who I am, this is my identity, go at all costs. And when I mean all costs, I mean like you're really not necessarily thinking about what's happening to yourself, what you're giving up, like where's your integrity, where morals and values, like what are you willing to sacrifice here and all of this in relationships as well. So my best advice is if you've never done some introspection, and it doesn't have to be this elaborate thing, but if you've never just taken a moment, a time out and just like, who am I? Like, what do I bring to the table? And it could like, you're going to your next meeting and just sit there for a second and think about the mood in the room when you sit down. What is your mood bringing to the table? How do people respond? Really reflect on that, just thing one. And then do the same thing with your friends and really try to break down, am I showing up the way that I want to show up?
Yeah.
The way, who I am. That's super critical. But I know introspection is hard.
Well, you nailed it. I think we say that a lot of times you'll hear us talk about the first of vulnerability is the first to create community, right? And that introspection or that self-awareness and that vulnerability of being curious, that's why I love the theme of this podcast and just how powerful curiosity really is in self-development, envisioning where we want to go and how we go there and what's getting in the way. But thank you very much for that. I want to, if we can pivot real quick, in thinking about that tenure as a CEO and the responsibilities, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I found myself identifying a lot with the storms that would come in, like the challenges, the adversity, the problems, the projects, like all of them created a tremendous amount of purpose for me. When I left the organization, there was no lack of storms. They just looked different. And so, and they manifested themselves differently. And I had different skills to have to try to navigate them. I'm just curious in this moment, like coming, and I love everything that you shared, but in this moment as a former CEO, hopefully future CEO again, right? What are those storms today? What does it look like? Taking away the old identity and kind of inserting where you are today, what fills that bucket of purpose and storms for you? Curious.
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, I've started helping some small companies, some small startups. So what provides me that purpose is truly working with others that I can provide value to. It's like my 20 years of experience of the blood, the scrapes, the bruises. How can I help you navigate your storms better, or plan, whatever that might be. That has been my continuously, as I'm kind of getting going on this journey, that has been where I'm most fulfilled. And then family wise, that is a huge part of like what I am focused on now. And it's truly been navigating school, health stuff we put on the back burner with our kids, navigating dyslexia, navigating growth hormones, like all of these things. And, I'm becoming a mini expert in all of these areas, as is my husband. But those are all quote unquote storms that you're dealing with, in everyday life. And thankfully, I have the freedom to be able to give my all to each of those storms, and not overwhelming myself and continuing to honor me and where, who I am.
I think it's so funny, the roles that we take on, right? As life changes, especially as a parent. I got to be honest, the hardest one for me, and maybe the storm, was my spouse. It wasn't that we had spousal issues, but I'm home now, and I'm home a lot, and I'm working as if I were in an office setting, and that my mindset has already flipped, even though I'm still in the house, right? How have you two navigated that? Just a light question, but I'm sure that's always a interesting dynamic for everyone, being home more. So I'm curious.
It is.
Heather, what he meant to say is he was the storm. Shelley is not a storm.
My wife wasn't ready.
He was a storm that entered for Shelley. Yeah, let's
yeah. So
that's true.
My husband works from home. He works with international clients, and so his mornings are really busy. Evenings are less busy because of time zone. But he's worked from home forever, right? For the last 15 years. And so, when COVID happened, it was like, oh, great. We have a 1-year-old, actually wasn't even 1-year-old yet. And then we're teaching first grade, and we're both going to be working side by side. So that was like the first little foray into what, like the goat rodeo. But when I, stopped working last November, that was a new day. And so it's like, all right, I have like a quasi office upstairs, and then real office here. His real office is here, quasi office up there. And so it's constantly trying to just
do the dance.
Doing the dance. Exactly. Doing the dance, making sure that I keep saying the term. I was like, I'm heads down right now. And he's like, please stop saying that. That is not. Just like, I'm in my zone. Don't bother me.
Bring your work lingo to home.
Yeah, exactly. And our son has started doing that too when he's doing homework. And I'm just like, great, like creating a monster here. But awesome. We are able to coexist and respect each other's like quote unquote work time, and make sure that we are able to focus and get stuff done. But it's been actually, I don't know. It's been, maybe this will wear off, but it's been fun, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
Doing the dance and navigating.
Oh, I thought it was great, Heather. My wife thought it was different. I thought this was like the dream come true. I thought this worked great. But come to find out, she didn't feel the same.
I don't really know. He's like, you're encroaching upon my territory. I've had the house to myself like this 100%. Whole time. Me and the cat. What's going on?
Yeah. Let's chalk it up as an experience. Yeah, that's kind of we'll go with that PC word. Heather, I'm curious. I've heard about kind of what you learned about Heather. I've learned also about like what it brings you fulfillment, what probably engagement along with that, but like what excites you. So in the spirit of kind of your path, if you're flexing a little bit of that muscle up vision, if you will, what's next for you?
So when I walked away, I felt like I would take some time before jumping into a full-time job, because I wanted to discover myself. We talked a little bit about creativity and, all of that I was kind of missing. So path forward though, I have formally launched my consulting firm. Haven't done a whole lot with it yet. I mean, there's no webpage or anything, but that's part of me reconnecting with people, is getting back out there and trying to refine my services, what I can bring to them, and just doing a lot of advisory calls right now on a variety of different things. But that's what I have realized, and I know, this season of life, my kids do need me more. And I think that me taking a leap, like a really scary leap, but a leap where I'm going to go out and serve hopefully many clients, but be able to be a mom, be a wife, be a sister, be a daughter to my family and a friend is so important. And that's what I want to build. Like, I want to be able to call the shots on, yes, I want this project. No, I don't. I like working with these people and I want to help them. Just be very intentional. I want to be able to be really, intentional with who I work with.
Yeah, it sounds like you really redefined your main thing, right? We have an old coach that helped us. Really, his line was keep the main thing the main thing, and we kind of coined that and kind of bring it with us to everything, right? Because that's ultimately what the path is. It's like, what's the main thing, and you're going to veer off it, and you're going to. But again, going back to your courage to kind of veer off it and redefine it. So being a mom, being a sister, being a daughter, being the different roles that you play in your life, and having intentionality around it. There's a boundary type exercise that we do, right? Like, so when you're talking about those things, it's great, but like, what have you found out about yourself, and what like boundaries have you created for yourself so you don't veer off your path again, and you can kind of keep those things the main thing? I love how you said, hey, this season of life, my kids need me, right? So there's going to be boundaries around that attention that I give them. Can you talk to us about some of the boundaries that you found about for yourself?
Yeah. So, great question. And, just putting on kind of the mom hat for a second, I put up, like, our son went into 6th grade, completely different, game changing. And you guys have been through this in terms of what's expected from elementary school to 6th grade.
Totally.
And he's our little, inventor, like does his homework on day 1, but forgets to turn it in. Child, love him. So I have had to really work with him. And it's been like, I feel like I am a 6th grade coach for him. It's like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And so I was like, put up boundaries where I know I need to spend this time with him to get him on the right path. So he can be successful and sustainable, like learning to learn. Yeah. Very critical thing that isn't necessarily taught, right? And it's just expected. So I've given him and me, my daughter is really frustrated because we have this homework time that she's not involved in, but have given like this semester, and then you've got to fly. Yeah. Like this is going to feel very different come your next semester, but I'm here with you, and kind of made these milestones, right, for him. And so that's like an example of me setting timelines is a boundary of like checking in. And I do it for myself too, getting the consulting kind of going. And it's like, I'm taking this seriously, but I also want to make sure that I'm not taking too much risk for my family. Right. And to the point where I'm kind of hitting my head against a wall, not there at all, but again, creating those milestones. This is where I want to be by end of this year. And then you assess. And so that's just how I've kind of always worked in terms of setting these goals for whatever the thing is or the project is in your life at that point in time, and then checking in on it.
That's great.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, real quick follow-up to that. Like, so you brought up introspection, and, a lot of the boundaries are about, making sure that you kind of stay the guardrails, right? You stay on track, you stay on your path. You brought up like, what are you doing now? Because building a company, we know it. It's all consuming, right? And what are you doing now to keep being introspective with yourself? What are you doing right now to keep that pause in your life, to go inside, to figure out, hey, how am I showing up? To be reflective on how you're showing up in the different roles that you have in your life. Like, what are some of the things that you're doing now to maintain that?
Yeah. Right now I don't have it's a baby consultancy. So I don't have like
Sure.
a lot of clients, so I've got a lot of time for introspection. And then I've, sending your first proposals out, and it's like, no, but, and then, working through that. So there's a lot of introspection here, and throw fear of failure out the door. And you guys know that you're going to get a lot of feedback, and that's where I'm at right now. And so it's really being introspective after I get a no, or like, why was that? Does this mean that I am going completely the wrong direction? No, I still, this is right. And so it's just constantly having this little back and forth with myself. And then there's some situations where it's like, oh, here's an opportunity. And it's a really small opportunity, and like the medium or large, medium, small. But I'm like, yes, because it's a small opportunity, but I know it doesn't fulfill me the same way. But I'm saying yes because I know I need income. Just fine. But also being intentional about how often am I having to say yes to something that doesn't fit the long-term path, and then continuing to refine your service offerings in the meantime.
Sure. Totally. Love that. Love it, buddy.
Hey, Heather, one thing that keeps coming to mind, then we'll kick it over to Chris and we'll go through some of the last steps here. But, in thinking about you and maybe inserting myself into your story just a little bit, one of the things that comes in this new chapter is just a lot of newness and a lot of excitement. And I love building the consulting firm. All of that is phenomenal. But it's also it's a season to make some intentional decisions, right? About how we want to live and how we want to show up in this back chapter. I spent 28 years, you had 20 years. We've all dedicated ourselves to this our careers. And then we get this unique opportunity, and many people will get, overwhelmed by the option of choice, right? We have a lot of choices on where we want to spend our time. I'm just curious, and maybe this is a deeper question, Heather, not so much about the business or really the kids or the family, but more about Heather. And knowing that you went through and look at what you built, look at the career, the family, the person, the human that we're meeting. Like that's, I think, the one thing that both Chris, Toby, and I talked about after the interaction. It's like, I felt like if you were my neighbor, I'd be over having a beer probably too much on Fridays, right? You have a very engaging personality. You can tell why you were successful. But I also know that my gut tells me you're a giver, and you give a lot and you care a lot. And so a lot of times that's what made us successful is we're givers. Mm-hmm. And so at this next chapter, how does Heather make Heather that priority? I'm kind of bumping up against Chris's questions of boundaries, but this podcast goes a lot of different directions, but what resonates with the listeners the most is that honest assessment of what's going to get in our personal way of being completely fulfilled or striving for fulfillment. So in this chapter where you're at, give us just a glimpse of what that means for Heather.
Yeah. I think this is, honestly, where I will struggle, because that is my MO, put myself on the back burner.
Yeah.
Because I tend to build others up and make them self-sufficient, help them be self-sufficient, in whatever it is that they're doing. So that's going to be my biggest challenge. I don't have a solution. I have a commitment to myself.
Yeah.
And I need to continue to check in on that commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all three of us could speak from experience. There's very few moments in our life that we're at a place where we can take this moment, and you've done enough work and been successful enough to be given the privilege of reflection, right? Of really reflecting deeply on who does Heather want to be for Heather, not for all these other people that you serve, but for you. And I just want to encourage you. That was the big breakthrough for me, was I kept looking, and the jokes with the wife being in the house was I was still trying to impact others. I was still, even though I didn't have 4,500 employees, that part of me was still there. It wasn't until my two partners here kind of grabbed me by the neck and shook me a few times and said, we need you to be selfish. We need you to worry about you. That was about the time that I started to build those boundaries and started to define that. I just encourage you to do so, because you'll bring more people with you on your march here to success. So thank you, Chris. I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah. Hey, Heather, having you on is just awesome. I think you're our second guest, so we're just getting into adding guests, but I had to have you on because there's so many women that just, the struggle with some of the stuff you're struggling with, right? And to see you doing it, like one of the things we say in our coaching is like, you can have it all. You can. It takes sacrifice, it takes intentionality, and it takes planning, but like you can be a great mom, and you can be a CEO, and you can still manage your values, and you can be it all, but it takes work. And Toby kind of taught us that when he used to coach me. It's like, are you willing to do the work? And that's why I love talking to you, because you definitely are. You're willing to just do that work. So I just think it's going to resonate with so many female executives, even just getting into the workforce, to see someone like you and to hear from someone like you that says, wait, I can be a mom. I can be successful. I can be a great wife, and all the different roles. It's just so powerful, and we need more of that out there. So that's one of the reasons I was super excited to get you on the podcast. But before we close, how the heck can we help you? Like, you're starting your consultancy. Is there anything, if people are listening to this and they just want to connect with you because they know you're going to say yes to them now that you said that on the podcast? Is there somewhere we can reach you, somewhere we can talk to you? If a client's interested in reaching out to you, what would that look like?
So you can find me easiest way to find me is LinkedIn. And I believe it's Heather Hoover-Salomon is how I'm listed formally on LinkedIn. And rewinding or reflecting back, where I was happiest in my prior job was the early stage startups, and then that growth and scale stage on the operational front. That is my sweet spot. I know marketplaces, I know transportation technologies, and just anything really technology and operations. That is where I thrive. Whether that's fractional COO work or coming in as a consultant to help companies figure out what is your next plan to hit that next growth stage, and where we can drive efficiency. So that's how you find me.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we'll have you linked into our show notes too. We'll put your LinkedIn profile there, so if anybody wants to reach her. But hey, reach out to this woman. She's special. It's awesome to hear your journey. It's awesome for you to like take a step backwards to take a couple steps forward, right? Like that, you really are embodying that. And I just think so many more people need to hear that, again, especially women in leadership and women getting into the business world. So keep being a role model out there, bud. I really appreciate you and looking forward to stay connected to you and help you in any way we can. So thanks for being on with us.
Absolutely. Thank you. And
to the audience, hey, thanks for joining us on the Path Podcast. Just remember, wherever you are on your path, just keep walking it with intention. Until next time, thanks so much.
Leadership doesn't have to cost you your health, your relationships, or your sense of purpose. True Path exists to help you create space for the real work, the kind that helps you lead with presence in both business and in life. When you start showing up fully, everything starts to shift. That's what we're here for. If this conversation gave you pause or sparked a deeper question about how you're leading, don't ignore that. Reach out. This is the work we do, and we'd be honored to support your journey.